Hey everybody, this is Sophia Florence, one of the hosts of the Crumbling podcast, and I'm here to tell you that we have new tiers on Patreon. And I know what you're thinking. Do I want to pay more for this podcast? Hell yeah, because you're going to get some cool shit with it. Our early supporter tier is now one of the new ones. Obviously, we have the old Help Us Grow one, which is just $3 a month. That gives you access to our episodes early and gives you access to our special episodes called Crumbs. The early supporter tier, which is $6 a month, gives you early access to the episodes like the other one, gives you some exclusive behind-the-scenes content. So there could be clips, bloopers, more other things that we'll be adding to the Patreon. A physical sticker pack, which is fun and themed designs produced by our illustrator, Chris Terendi. Patreon-only updates and polls that'll help shape our future content. So that'll be really exciting if you want to kind of be more of an active participant in what we're doing here. And it's, just kind of a perfect thing for fans who want a sneak peek and exclusive goodies. There's some really fucking cool designs. I can't wait till y'all see them. If you want to go a little bit more than that, we have the super fan tier that is $20 a month. That gives you early access to all the episodes. It gives you those behind the scenes episodes and extras. It'll give you access to something that the other ones don't have, which is a limited edition t-shirt. We've got one right now. It's super cool. I am not even going to show it to you guys. Probably have more designs over the years. If you want the shirt, come get it. It's $20 a month for that. Ideal for anyone who loves merch. They want to, tell people about our podcast and they don't want to actually talk about it. Some of us are introverts. You don't want to talk about shit. You just want to be a billboard, and I'm cool with that. And also, it's the same art that's on the stickers. It is super rad, and 40% of the tier's proceeds go directly to supporting our illustrator's work. That is Chris Terendi. He's at Chris Tyrendi, Tirendi art.com. ChrisTyrendiart.com. Give it a look. I hope that some of you will join, and I hope that you will take part in some polls and tell us what you want. We want to make the content that you want within the confines of the stuff that we like to do. Please go to our Patreon, patreon.com/The Crumbling Podcast, and join today. Welcome to The Crumbling Podcast, a show about think tanks, sort of. We're really a show about disinformation and how it caused our collective sense of reality to crumble and maybe what we can do about it. And boy, are we going to talk about some reality-bending dipshits today. I'm your host, Sophia Florence, and here are my co-hosts.
Davin.
And V.
On the last episode, we gave a bit of an introduction to the Austrian and Chicago economics schools, which were sort of the people that, along with Ayn Rand and others, really built up what makes up the modern libertarian conservative movements. The Austrians, more of a libertarian side, and the Chicago school, while coming back from the libertarians and being more on the conservative side. Once you get into the nerdy bunch, it's all one big incestuous fuck puddle. Today, we're going to get more into Hayek, Rothbard, and the people that followed them ultimately set the infamous libertarian to fascist pipeline. With Rothbard's very serious social conservatism, despite him referring to himself as libertarian and an anarchist, the guy hated racial integration. One thing we want you to keep in mind is that our entire political infrastructure comes from both. In the 1960s, Rothbard sought to try and convert some of the people from the movement described as the New Left to his philosophy, forming a bit of an alliance with them on the topic of war. The New Left wasn't really an ideological coherent movement so much as the description of organizations which were sort of outside of the orthodox classical Marxist movements. You had to contain within these groups folks belonging to Situationalists International, various Trotskyist and Maoist organizations, including the Black Panther Party, the Students of the Democratic Society, legendary cool guy and opposite Murray Bookchin, and so much more. It's not that different from the far left today, which doesn't have an ideological consensus, but has an agreement that capitalism and oppression of minoritized groups is something that needs to be fought against by large mass of people, often using various tactics. We'll talk about these folks in later episodes.
Yeah, something I'm going to leave as an editor's note here. We actually didn't talk about Rothbard's segregationist bullshit in the last episode because I put it in this episode. But yeah, the New Left was kind of cool, and I would love to talk about them sometime, but they're not the bad guys in this story, and kind of a cool set of movements in general. This is basically like all of the left of 1960s and 1970s politics. These are your civil rights orgs, but they are also all of your socialist and anarchist orgs. These are some cool motherfuckers.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, and of course, the opposite of Murray Rothbard is Murray Bookchin, of course, who is cool, and you should Google him, and you should Google the meme, Google Murray Bookchin, just so that you know that I'm making a joke here. Yeah. What do y'all think about Murray Bookchin?
Honestly,
Weird name.
I'm going to make an admission here.
Have you not Googled Murray Bookchin?
I have not.
Oh, damn. Okay, so just a short thing on Murray Bookchin. Bookchin was a guy that started off as an anarcho-syndicalist, which are people that basically believe in anarchism, where unions are sort of the method of running things. So
I
like
see.
like you
Okay.
take that kind of union structure and like move it out to society at large, but it's not unions like the AFL-CIO and the ones that we have today that are more like business centric. You have unions like the Industrial Workers of the World and the CNT and sort of these more radical unions that were radically democratic, but kind of similar to council communism, but more anarchist. And so Rothbard was somebody that started off like that. And then he got really into the ecology thing. He basically worked ecology into that and started to develop like a different kind of system of doing things that mixed anarchism and Marxism, basically cooked up a whole new philosophy. And if you're familiar with the Kurdish groups that have been fighting ISIS and Turkey,
Oh, the YPG?
yes, they are like acolytes of Murray Bookchin.
Okay.
So the guy that started all of that shit, Abdullah Öcalan, like he was really into fucking Murray Bookchin.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Uh,
Interesting.
But weirdly enough, also the Green Party in the US, its original platform was based off of Murray Bookchin's work. The only person that's carried that out since then, the Greens have just kind of bent to like letting whoever get into the party and run in the party. And they've just been like, well, we need like some amount of power before we actually care about our platform. But the original party was developed by Murray Bookchin, and the only person that gave a shit about it and like actually ran on the platform of Bookchin's philosophy was Howie Hawkins in 2020.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that was the year that the Socialist Party and the Green Party ran a single ticket. Nobody knows about it.
No, I don't know
like everybody
shit.
thought that the Green Party was just Jill Stein, and so they kind of ignored all of that. She gives me a headache too.
So the YPG stands for People's Protection Units, Libertarian Socialist U.S.-backed Kurdish militant group in Syria.
No longer U.S. backed. We're U.S. backed for a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
And that didn't work out.
We always disappoint the Kurds. That's what we do.
We have been disappointing the Kurds for like 60 years strong.
Yeah, since, they're just used to it at this point, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Just like, next time we ally with you guys, we're going to get like knifed. It sucks. Oy.
But anyway, so Rothbard's alliance with the New Left, it didn't last long because basically the only thing they agreed on was war. And for some of that group, a distaste for the state. There were some anarchists in the New Left. But, going back, these are left-wing anarchists, and it's vastly different than anarcho-capitalism, which can be described as a viciously right-wing kind of quote-unquote anarchism, which I'd argue doesn't even exist. Left-wing anarchists did support the idea of the abolition of the state as we know it, but generally to be replaced by a more radical democracy, including in the workplace. Rothbard's biggest disagreement with them was on the cooperation with the white parts of the New Left and the black parts of the movement on goals including racial integration and egalitarianism. He would rather black folks have sought out separatism than what he would call like forced integration.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's bullshit. So Rothbard stops trying to, play nice with the New Left and instead joins the Libertarian Party in the 1980s, which, still exists today, and was stated to have been deeply inspired by his ideas. The people that started the Libertarian Party were big Rothbard fans, big von Mises fans, big fans of all the Austrian economists. In the same span of time, he also helped form the Cato Institute with a man named Edward Crane and another named Charles Koch, one of the infamous Koch brothers.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we went into these guys on our series on climate change, but in case you didn't listen and you want a brief summary, the other brother is David Koch, and these two dorks, the Koch brothers, Charles and David, are behind a lot of the right-wing political funding for at least the last half a century. Their father, Fred Koch, was a founding member of the John Birch Society, which is going to require probably like 10 episodes later on. Like the John Birch Society is a big part of all of this shit, but it's not quite a libertarian thing. It is some secret third thing.
Yeah. What do you even call it?
I would call it paleoconservative, and we will get into those ideas here. But we didn't have enough time to fit John Birch in. But just to give you like a taste of who Fred Koch was and who the John Birch Society was, they were started by a couple of engineers and the journalist friend. Fred Koch was an engineer, and at least Charles was. Can't remember if David is or not, but big chemical engineering family. If you bought any kind of packed bed anything in the 80s, you would have gotten like a Koch Industries box of packing for your reactor or columns. I found a Koch Industry box set someplace I worked.
Oh man, you should. Did you capture it for your own amusement?
Yeah. Yeah, sadly don't have it these days.
Bugger.
Anyway, a couple engineers and the journalist friend, they start this thing called the John Birch Society, and it was a huge influence on modern right-wing politics, but also had this sort of side that was openly but quietly just like Alex Jones type shit. Like this is where the anger against water fluoridization becomes popularized. and a lot of the hard right conservatives and libertarians made up their ranks. Murray likes to burn bridges, clearly, and burn bridges he did. The man was set on ideological purity, and he diverged from both of these groups, both the Libertarian Party and the Cato Institute, on those bases.
My brain is suddenly going to something awful. Anyway,
Oh, no,
sorry.
I don't know what it is.
Oh, God. For the Cato Institute, from which he was fired, he was finding that they were less interested in fully stateless capitalism than they were in what they called a low-tax liberalism. And his stated opposition to a lot of these things was noted by Koch and Crane. More or less, what was happening was that Koch and Crane were cozying up to the Republican Party and engaging in more typical politics, where Murray would have rather have started a think tank at a university and written about things and built his libertarian daydreams through a sort of intellectual revolution. He criticized Crane for this because he felt like it deviated from the principled libertarianism. He didn't say as much about Koch at that time, although he referred to the Koch brothers network as the Kochtopus. But as for Crane, the Kochtopus. Ooh, we should. Yeah,
there's other people that have used that term. That was common in liberal groups in like the Bush era.
Oh, we got to liberate that one. That's good.
Yeah. No. It's very good.
Oh, man.
Murray Rothbard, legendary shit talker.
Apparently, excellent.
Crane was not spared the smoke. In an article titled, It Usually Ends with Ed Crane, Rothbard starts laying out his case against both of them, but particularly Ed, as follows. On Black Friday, March 27th, 1981, at 9 a.m. in San Francisco, the libertarian power lead of the Cato Institute, consisting of President Edward H. Crane III and other stakeholder Charles G. Koch, revealed its true nature and its cloven hoof. Crane, aided and abetted by Koch, ordered me to leave the Cato's regularly quarterly board meeting, even though I'm a shareholder and founding board member of the Cato Institute. The Crane-Koch action was not only iniquitous and high-handed, but also illegal. As my attorneys informed them before and during the meeting, they didn't care. What's more, as will be explained shortly, in order to accomplish this foul deed, their own satisfaction, Crane-Koch literally appropriated and confiscated the shares which I had naively left in the Cato Wichita office for safekeeping. An act clearly in violation of our agreement, as well as contrary to every tenet of the libertarian principle. He follows here. There has scarcely been a creative new idea at Cato since its first year. Old programs such as Inquiry and the Cato seminars have simply continued in place. And Crane has never made a positive contribution to the contents of Inquiry. The best recent programs, the Quarterly Cato Journal, was not Crane's idea at all, and was instituted when he was away on leave. And the best new idea hatched at Cato in years, the concept of the Cato think tank at some university, with fellowships, resident scholars, and publishing, the Cato Journal, was shot down angrily by Crane when he returned from his campaign leave. Probably the greatest single need of the movement right now is for scholarly university think tank to foster interdisciplinary libertarian ideas. That feels like an oxymoron. But Crane, in his deep contempt for the human mind, squashed the idea and instead denounced those who drew it up as plotters against his reign. So much for Crane, the man of ideas.
Yeah, that last line made me laugh when I was reading this. But also, like, he refers to him as having like a cloven hoof. Like,
oh my God.
He's like, he's a devil.
Yeah. Wow.
Like, the man's good at shit talking.
Yeah, he really is.
It's the one thing I'll give him. He's a complete bastard, but like, he's funny. And I feel like if Trump wasn't a consequential guy,
I know,
he sort of would have ended up like Rothbard. But, our argument here is really that Rothbard is this guy, and all of the people that we're talking about, we talk about them for the reason that they had a massive influence on massive disinformation movements. So you'll be unsurprised to know he was consequential in a way that fucking sucks.
Yep. It's the same thing with Eric Adams, too. Like, it's like we have some legendary weirdos. It's like the George W. Bush phenomenon. You know, if you remember Bushisms.
Yeah.
I have the calendar still. Literally pristine. Yeah.
If those guys aren't consequential, they're just fucking John Madden.
Yeah.
Like, that's what happens when you take like an idiot and you give him like a largely inconsequential job. And like, yes, Madden has football games named after him. Like, everyone knows who he is. He's a household name. Frank Caliendo did a good impression of him.
Yeah.
But like, he would say shit like, he'd be like, so this guy's like 300 pounds, and that means he's about the same size as other guys his size. And you'd be like, yeah, of course that's true.
I was about to actually say, as the resident meathead, John Madden's actual impact on the announcements of games cannot be held up enough. Like, he was one of the first people to easily conceptualize the complexity of football. He's also the reason why like people think it's like a Neanderthal sport, if I were being honest, because he like oversimplified it so much. But like beforehand, it was like he ran to the left and John's like, no, here's this thing, on top of the stupidity of his like comments.
Yeah, he would give you like this brilliant play-by-play. And then he'd be like, so, when you get a touchdown, that's when you take the ball to the end zone. And he'd be like, yeah, John, that's true. We knew that. Probably worth mentioning here that eventually Crane, the president of the Institute for many years, had departed Cato as well, due to a falling out with Charles Koch. The latter part of Rothbard's career, starting around 1982, was spent creating and working within the Ludwig von Mises Institute with his friend Lew Rockwell, who was a chief of staff for a little-known congressman at the time named Ron Paul.
Oh, good God.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we're getting some Paul episodes later on.
Oh, boy.
We're going to talk about him a lot today, too. But so this group, the Ludwig von Mises Institute, is also often just called the Mises Institute, and it's still believed in the anarcho-capitalism, but sought to forge an alliance with so-called paleo-conservatives of the alt-right. Folks like Nixon advisor and 1990s presidential candidate Pat Buchanan.
Ah, yes, him.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, Pat Buchanan is if you were looking for an earlier Trump, you find it in Pat Buchanan. Buchanan's views still embraced capitalism and a minimization of the state, anti-interventionism, but boy, howdy, did that guy love racism. And this guy loves every kind of bigotry. Let's read some quotes. I'll start with the first one. He said, if you want to know ethnicity and power in the United States Senate, 13 members of the Senate are Jewish folks who are from 2% of the population. That is where the real power is at. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. How is America committed? Wait, it's only 13 members. Never mind. How is
it's
America
not 14
suicide?
and there's no 88 yet.
No, my brain's like, wait, that's only 13 members of Senate. Never mind. Yeah,
well, Senate's only
like,
got 100 members, but whatever.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? I could get into like the logistics of it later. Here's the other quote from this fuckboy. How's America committing suicide? Every way a nation can. The American majority is not reproducing itself. Oh, God. Its birth rate has been below replacement level for decades. 45 million of its young have been destroyed in the womb since Roe v. Wade. He's just hitting the hits. As Asians, African, and Latin American children come to inherit this state, the lost generation of American children never got to see. Our minority population rose 2.4 million to exceed 100 million. Hispanics, 1% of the U.S. population in 1950, are now 14.4%. Since 2000, their numbers have soared 25% to 45 million. The U.S. Asian population grew by 24% since 2000, as the number of white kids of school age fell 4%. Half the children 5 and younger are minority children. The Anglo population of California is down to 43% and falling fast. White folks are now a minority in Texas and New Mexico. In Arizona, Hispanics account for more than half the population under 20. The America's Southwest is returning to Mexico.
Poor homosexuals. They have declared war on nature, and now nature is exacting an awful retribution. That was about AIDS.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think this guy's numbers are even close to being fucking correct. But like, let's go to La La Land.
If those were true, who gives a fuck?
Yeah, sorry. It's just like hearing something like that, which is quite literally the great replacement theory, is so wild. Let's go to La La Land and assume these numbers were kind of correct, or maybe. Did this guy ever stop to think the census does not have a section for multiracial identity? And that also does not account if you have a child, say, like, who's of a white person and a Hispanic person, which cultural heritage do they identify more with, like the white side or not? Because I was about to say some spicy takes on model minorities and stuff. Let's just say the point he's trying to make, even if we take his numbers as fact, doesn't make sense because of like what dominant culture do the children align themselves to, even though it's all American culture. Like, am I making sense with this half rant?
Yeah.
Trying not to like get too spicy in my takes.
No, that's not spicy.
Please get spicy.
Like, that is perfectly reasonable. Even if his numbers were correct, it's like, who cares if America's white? Like, I don't give a fuck. America's America. You could change the contents of it a whole lot before you really started to see like a diminution of what is American culture. And like also what is American culture is culture that was formed as sort of a blend of a bunch of different people bringing a bunch of shit together. Like you would not have pizza and hamburgers and fucking rock and roll music and everything else if you didn't have ethnic and racial minorities coming to this country. The concept of whiteness only came about as a way to put itself in opposition to the concept of blackness. And, you know, at first it was was just like, oh, it's just Germans and English people. That's it. Those are the only white people. And then they were like, maybe we could add the Scots. And then they were like, well, maybe we could add the Irish, but no Italians. And then they were like, well, maybe we could add the Italians, but not Asians. There was a court case that did declare an Asian man was white.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because he was like, hey, I should be allowed to vote. And the Supreme Court literally took the case.
What is this case name? I need to know about it.
I will dig it
Please,
up, and we will talk about it on our Patreon exclusives, Crumbs. So sign up for our fucking Patreon if you want to hear me talk about the Supreme Court case about whether a guy is white or not.
This shit sometimes it's very interesting because you can see the fear in a certain person's eyes, like especially this person, Buchanan, who's like when you say America, a common decency person would think like, yeah, a bunch of cultures mixing, like land of the free, like home of immigrants because of the fucking Statue of Liberty and all that. It's a melding of really dope cultures because there's so much like diversity of landscapes and everything that produce it. But then this guy, like, he hears America and he just thinks white, good old white children. And it's always so interesting because and it's one of those things you always know from like a child, especially if you're a part of any like outside group. It's like, when you say America, you're not talking about me. You're not talking about me. But they're like, no, we are. But like, anyone can be American as long as you follow these very strict rules that just happen to align themselves to whiteness.
Yeah.
It's very, well, this guy's also so like brazen about it. But like other people who are like, no, we're American, you just have to speak English the way we speak it. Even though like there's like 15 fucking dialects of English. Like, have you ever talked to someone from the South? Like just all the dialects of English in the South.
Oh yeah.
Like
I used to live in the South. I lived in North Carolina. Like it's a different world.
Yeah. Like the dialect of like speech spoken in Florida versus Louisiana versus Alabama are all so different.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, y'all don't even speak English all the right way. I don't know. It's
nobody speaks English the right way.
It's
what
really
is the right
annoying.
way to speak English? And anyway.
English is also like 3 languages stacked on top of each other, pretending to be one.
Truly.
Oh yeah. Let's keep it moving just so we can meet the times. Yeah. Anyway, so guys like Pat Buchanan, these were the kinds of folks that Rothbard was trying to court at the Mises Institute and in his, I guess, activism, you could call it. There's another one that's pretty noteworthy, Peter Brimlow.
Oh yes, him.
The founder of a hate group called VDARE, or the Virginia Dare Foundation, which advocated for the end to non-white immigration to the U.S., a return to segregation, and every other odious racist thing you could imagine. I should note here that Stephen Miller, the immigration advisor to Donald Trump, and famously the only person in Trump's admin to not get fired, sent a lot of material from VDARE to staffers at Breitbart while he was still working for Jeff Sessions, and attempted to get them to cover their ideas favorably. There's a lot of connections at this point in the story to what's going on now, partly because we're, a bit more modern, but also Brimlow was around for a long time. But lots of other folks who were, quote unquote, paleoconservatives, or really as they should be called, just fucking neo-Confederates, were popping in and out of the Mises Institute orbit at this time. And even after 95, when Rothbard died, Lou Rockwell, who was Rothbard's collaborator in starting the Institute, absolutely was one of these guys. In the 1980s and the 1990s, he edited a series of newsletters for Ron Paul. I'm going to read from an article in the New Republic from 2008 in which they reported on about 20 years of those newsletters they had obtained. This special issue on racial terrorism was hardly the first time one of Ron Paul's publications had raised these topics. As early as December 1989, a section of his quote-unquote investment letter titled What to Expect for the 1990s predicted that racial violence will fill our cities because mostly black welfare recipients will feel justified in stealing from mostly white haves as opposed to have-nots. 2 months later, a newsletter warned of the quote-unquote coming race war. And in November 1990, an item advised readers, if you live in a major city and can leave, do so. If not, but you can have a rural retreat for investment in refuge, buy it. In June 1991, an entry on racial disturbances in Washington, D.C.'s Adams Morgan neighborhood was titled Animals Take Over the D.C. Zoo.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And he said, this is only the first skirmish in the race war of the 1990s. In an October 1992 item about urban crime, the newsletter's author, presumably Ron Paul or probably Lou Rockwell, wrote, I've urged everyone in my family to know how to use a gun in self-defense, for the animals are coming.
Oh, Jesus.
That same year, a newsletter described the aftermath of a basketball game in which quote unquote, blacks poured into the street of Chicago in celebration. How to celebrate? How else? They broke the windows of stores to loot. The newsletter inveighed against liberals who, quote unquote, wanted to keep white America from taking action against black crime and welfare, adding jury verdicts, basketball games, and even music are enough to set off black rage, it seems, which, yeah, is horrifying. I hated reading that. I need to say very specifically that this is dehumanization. Like, we talked about this before in not only the episodes with Laura, but in the episodes with Allie Wayne. We talked about it, especially with David Livingstone Smith. Like, this is dehumanization. Like, referring to people as animals, that is dehumanization. Referring to people as having like criminal proclivities based on race, that's dehumanization. This is fascism. This is the brain mother of fascism, is dehumanizations. Rockwell denied his involvement more than editing for this, which, you know, other people in Paul's orbit are saying it's bullshit. But it's impossible for like a decent person to read that and say that that should be sold to the public anyway. Like, how are you going to edit that and be like, yeah, sure, we could put this out to the public? Like, that's fucking horrifying. Rockwell is a bastard and a racist piece of shit.
Is he related to George Lincoln Rockwell by any chance, or is this just like a name that everybody's...
to be another Rockwell.
This is insane. Okay.
Yeah, it's like Norman
That's
Rockwell.
hilarious.
Yeah, I know.
Family,
They're
but
all like taking his name, and that's kind of gross. Or Norman Rockwell.
Yeah.
Unless he had those same views, which I
don't know.
don't think he did. So it's just
know.
like people taking it and then like, yeah, I want to go to the Rockwell Museum. My parents went there and it was apparently great. So like the art museum.
Yeah.
So, but like, yeah. And so, and my grandma has a huge table book about like with all the actual Rockwell pictures.
Yeah.
Norman Rockwell is bleeding, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Paul's campaign in 2008 for president broadly popularized the idea of right libertarianism in America. We cannot understate that. Like that's understatement. Yeah. Of the year. Okay. And that gave away to people accessing the Mises Institute, Lou Rockwell's other website, and plenty of other publications that push these kinds of lines. This further pushed culture war lines and the paleo into the kind of nascent and growing libertarian community, whose adherents often started off quite socially liberal. The Mises Institute has one more huge connection from where we're at, outside of Paul. Hans Hermann Hoppe, a student of Rothbard's, established another think tank, the Property and Freedom Society, and inspired a lot of the even further right leanings of libertarians. On the one hand, Hoppe's work was particularly influential on Curtis Yarvin, also known as the blogger Mencius Moldbug, who is cited as a philosophical inspiration for people that live in the higher echelons of Trump's orbit, such as J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel. If you want more on this, I recommend Behind the Bastards' series on him, because we very much do not have time for him right now. But what you need to know is that without Hoppe, you don't have Thiel and Vance becoming radicalized to what they are. And without Rothbard, you never get Hoppe. In addition to this, his Peace and Freedom Society, which is functionally just a second Mises Institute with a more sanitized name, has platformed and given speaking engagements to folks like Richard Spencer, the very punchable white nationalist who we all love to hate, and Jared Taylor, the infamous neo-Nazi responsible for the publication American Renaissance. All in all, bad shit. But that's where we'll leave the Rothbard influence side for now. We need to turn back to Hayek, Mises, and Friedman.
So Hayek and Mises, as well as another few economists, met in 1938 in France, and we're going back in time a little bit here, to form the Walter Lippmann Colloquium. They wanted to set out to create a new liberalism, or quote-unquote neoliberalism, as coined by one of its members, Alexander Rousseau. And so they did. So tell me, what do you guys think that neoliberalism means? Give me like your shortest definition.
That just feels like politics as usual with like adherence to capitalism.
Yeah, kind of like it almost feels like it's almost devoid of context in a way that like it's just been used too much. Like I don't understand words at this point because things just get used too much in the popular culture that I just, you know, okay.
Yeah,
it's at that point.
Is one of those words that is inappropriately used.
Yes.
So let's give you an actual definition.
Yes, let's do it.
What it is, but it's basically libertarianism.
Yeah.
It is almost exactly libertarianism. Yeah. It was cooked up by the libertarians. It is libertarianism, just writ large. Anyway, the actual definition of neoliberalism isn't that vague, and it's basically just an ideology that supports policies that would privatize as much as possible, support a minimal welfare state, or even just a universal basic income, but no subsidies except for if you're absolutely destitute, have a money supply issued by the government and controlled by a central bank, favor free trade agreements, and getting rid of barriers to entry in the market, including enforcing antitrust laws.
Hell yeah, antitrust laws.
Yes, the antitrust laws are like kind of a cool part of this, but the rest of it is just Republican bullshit.
Yes.
This is just this is just libertarianism with like a minimal baby amount of protections. And this is obviously a lot of detail, but Friedman summed the entire program up well in an ideological perspective in his 1951 essay, Neoliberalism and Its Prospects. He said, neoliberalism would accept the 19th century liberal emphasis on the fundamental importance of the individual, but it would substitute for the 19th century goal of laissez-faire as a means to this end, the goal of the competitive order. It would seek to use competition among producers to protect consumers from exploitation, competition among employers to protect workers and owners of property, and competition among consumers to protect the enterprises themselves. The state would police the system, establish conditions favorable to competition and prevent monopoly, and provide a stable monetary framework and relieve acute misery and distress. The citizens would be protected against the state by the existence of a free private market and against one another by the preservation of competition. And just real quick, we use the term laissez-faire there. This is basically like a kind of bastardization of a French term that's basically like, let you do your thing. And that is one of the main ideas in libertarianism. We've said it in more words, but the less words version is they'll refer to like laissez-faire capitalism, laissez-faire government. And it's just a government lets you do whatever you want. It is capitalism that lets you do whatever you want. So that's laissez-faire. I tried to avoid the word because, frankly, I think the term is bullshit, and I don't like saying French words in Anglophone accents, but I need people to understand what I'm saying. So how do you feel like, after reading that, like, how do you feel like does this apply to like a guy like Joe Biden, or do you feel like he's not quite that? Because I feel like one thing that's notable about the neoliberals is they are anti-New Deal.
Yeah, that's doesn't
that's not
really
a Joe Biden thing, right?
Yeah, no, that doesn't seem to apply to like, yeah, that's not
Like-
doesn't. I don't perceive him that way anyway. Like people accuse of people, other, politicians of all sorts of things. And one of them I don't think you could accuse Joe Biden of is that being anti-New Deal.
Yeah. While Friedman wasn't associated with the original colloquium, a good number of its members met again starting in 1947 as the Mont Pelerin Society. He was inducted there, as well as von Mises and Hayek. The goal of the society was simple: to disseminate the ideas of neoliberalism. For von Mises, he was still a bit more dedicated to the classical laissez-faire ideas of libertarianism, and he passed on in the 1970s, too early to see the fruition of his work. Friedman and Hayek, however, one lived to the 1990s, one lived to the 2000s. I believe it was Friedman that died in 2006, Hayek sometime in the 90s, but they took these ideas and ran with them. So Friedman, after the Mont Pelerin Society, engaged in the Chilean fascist project under Augusto Pinochet, which we discussed a bit in our episodes on climate change. He was part of a group called the Chicago Boys, which advised Pinochet on proper economic policies. Pinochet's government was experiencing hyperinflation, partly as a result of repealing price controls set under the government of the man he overthrew, Salvador Allende. Friedman's involvement here was complicated, though, and started over 2 years after Pinochet taking power, whereas some of the Chicago Boys were taking part in the regime a bit earlier than that, including potentially before its existence, kind of working with the coup. Friedman defended his choice to work with these folks here, and by telling people that, he was engaging with the government towards policies that would lead them closer to freedom and to less government restriction. And while Pinochet was a vicious dictator and Friedman's policies did initially lead to a drastic worsening of the economy, in the long term, there was a reduction in poverty and the military dictatorship fell. And while Friedman says this was always his intent, it's hard to look past someone hanging out with fascists. He also advised the Nixon administration's economic policies and was a huge influence on Ronald Reagan's as well, and even later on Bill Clinton's. While Clinton rejected some of the social conservatism that often came along with neoliberalism, he embraced their economic policies entirely, enacting the North American Free Trade Agreement, pursuing welfare reforms, and by that I mean kicking people off of welfare and state assistance, and repealing the Glass-Steagall Act, which we mentioned in previous episodes, and we will talk about a hell of a lot more when we talk about the financial crisis. As for Hayek, he went and advised Margaret Thatcher, a conservative UK prime minister, in her economic decisions. She's also the inspiration for the bad guys in V for Vendetta, so, there's something. Also, the bad guys in V for Vendetta in the comic book, like one of the first lines is "Make Britain Great Again." So I don't know.
Oh no!
That's one of the first lines in the comic book.
Oh my God! Okay,
it's there. It's just right in front of us. Anyway, so Thatcher horrible person, very anti-immigrant, very awful in general. She was said to have slammed one of Hayek's books on the table in front of other Conservative Party members, stating that the book was what they as a party believed in, while opposing other members that called for a more moderate economic policy. Outside of the US, these views also flourished. Neoliberalism became somewhat of a dominant ideology of a lot of the West and many countries outside of it. It's hard to go anywhere without seeing its influence now. I think we could all see now how much work these particular jackasses did in connecting the dots between the libertarian ideology and many major political parties around the world, whether the Trumpian angle drawing from some of the paleo-libertarians, paleo-conservatives like your Pat Buchanan's, or on the Clinton angle drawing from the neoliberals, even in ostensibly center-left parties. It's everywhere. And that's not to say that the term is used well. People still clearly misapply it to things all the time. People just think that neoliberal is liberal plus capitalist, but liberal was always liberal plus capitalist. This is libertarian capitalism with a tiny little welfare state, little babies helping people out if they're dying sometimes, maybe. And that's it. That's it for these 2 episodes. We'll return in some time with Heath Drusen, an NPR reporter who wrote about militias, and we will explain.
That's sick. All right.
How libertarianism got to militias, which, oh boy.
Pack a helmet.
To talk about there. And so much of it relates to the 2008 election.
Yes, it does.
Everything's going back to Ron Paul. It's all coming up Ron Paul.
Oh my God, no.
Anything you want to plug?
Once again, I'm going to plug the Indiegogo campaign of Sophia and our producer, Eamon. Queer Wolves. Please throw your money at this project. It sounds like fun.
We're doing Queer Wolves. It's going on the website. It is a sapphic, lycanthropic horror comedy, or if you will, a lesbian werewolf rom-com.
Beautiful.
Yeah, the first one's better, but sometimes it's fun to say to the little one. And so, yeah, we are doing an Indiegogo campaign for this. This is a short film. It's something that I wrote quite a few years ago. Well, not too many years ago, about 2. It is something that I've been thinking about for a long time. It is an expression of dehumanization, queerness, of mental illness, of feeling lost in your own body. If you are somebody who has a queer experience in this world, has a weird experience in this world, has a dehumanized experience in this world, like we are making this movie to connect with you. And if you like supporting that kind of media, we will have the Indiegogo page on our website, thecrumbling.com. You can go check it out, donate to the campaign. If you donate to the Indiegogo campaign, there are some levels that you can donate to where you get specific cool things. Smaller donations like $10 will get your name in the credits. Larger donations, you can get things like the werewolf masks we are making for it. I am making these masks by hand. I used to do a lot of sculpting when I was younger and love making masks, and don't get to do it very often, but very excited to make articulated werewolf masks. And so if you want a werewolf mask that moves with your face,
hell yeah,
and you donate $200 to our campaign, you'll get one.
Cool.
And so that's kind of cool. And if you donate enough money, you can literally have a cameo in the movie and have a walk-on role with a line, which I know is a risky thing to offer, but I'm only offering it because I get to write whatever your fucking line is. But yeah, please donate to the movie, check it out, and yeah, we'll see you on our next set of episodes, and look forward to it.
Yes. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Done.